Hi, now this is an exciting time to be living in for any of us, but it's also a scary one. And there have been lots of things on social media recently pointing out the problems that may lay ahead. So what I'd like to do in this video is to think of 3 positive ways in which this pandemic could change our society. One way in which this crisis may be a force for positive change could be through politics. And I say this because for the past 5 or 6 years now, our politics has been centred around division. If you think of Brexit, if you think of the migrant crisis, if you think of populism in general, all of these things are about choosing sides, being on one side which is generally the polar opposite to the other. And a lot of the time it's been about throwing rhetoric or hate at the other side. Now, in the shape of this disease, we have a common enemy. What's more, this common enemy is not an individual human being. It can affect anyone of any political persuasion. It can affect the wealthy, it can affect the poor. And as such, it means that as a species, we have to do something about it together, and we have to put aside those differences. I believe we're already seeing that take place now in how governments across the world are dealing with it. Particularly in Britain, if you look at the House of Commons, you'll see 2 political parties who a few weeks ago had almost nothing in common, working together for a common good. So let's hope this continues, and let's hope that this period of turmoil, just as the Second World War was a period of turmoil, results in positive change. After all, the period after the Second World War was the time which gave us things like the NHS, which we're relying so heavily on now to get us through this crisis. What we're living through now is probably going to be a short-term crisis lasting about a year or more, even though it's still pretty horrible to be living through. However, much more importantly on the horizon, in the longer term, is the looming threat of climate change and the damage that mankind, since the Industrial Revolution, has been doing consistently to the planet. Now, as we all know, this has been high up in the news agenda for a long time now and has been made more prominent through Greta Thunberg and groups like Extinction Rebellion, but hardly anything has been done. But all of a sudden now, within the last week, we've seen that flights have been cancelled almost all over the place. 2/3 of Virgin Atlantic flights cancelled the other day. Amazing. That result could never have been expected in such a short time by any of the groups that I certainly met when I went to see those protests taking place in London. So this is a momentous change, and even if once this is over things begin to go back to how they were before, this will have set a precedent for that change, and it's shown everyone how quickly things can be done to save the planet. Now, you would have seen in news reports things like the canals in Venice becoming a lot clearer with the absence of cruise ships and ferry boats going up and down them. You'll also have seen wildlife even entering cities in greater numbers than they were before. This is fantastic, really, in the sense that it shows us the change that mankind can bring about if we have the willpower to. And again, this common enemy of this disease is the thing which has given us this willpower, this unified force of will to try and change things and to make our planet a better place for our children and our grandchildren's future. Third and finally, I want to take you back to around 2011, when there was a charity fundraising video posted all over social media that showed a little girl having a birthday party. And shortly after this birthday party, the world erupts around her in the form of the Syrian civil war. So much so that a year later, she's in a completely different situation, leading a completely new life in a new country. And first of all, this crisis reminded me of that because I was worried. I was thinking that humanity exists on a knife edge, even here in Western Europe, where we kind of consider ourselves immune from this type of crisis going on. But secondly, what also challenged me was that this crisis may give us a deeper sense of empathy with people that have lived through this type of trauma, with people who've experienced things such as conflict and famine in their lives, people who've experienced hardship. Actually, we might not look at them anymore as swarms and hordes of people coming into our country and taking our jobs and taking our money from us and our goods and services, but we might begin to welcome them. And as such, from that, with empathy, we might begin to build a better world. So I hope that may instill in you a bit of hope. I'll see you next time on Mr. Keet in isolation. This is my daily constitutional. I'm going home after this, where we all should be right now. But before I go, I'd just like to say to my friends who work in the emergency services, who work in healthcare, it's fantastic. I could never do such a job as that. I can't stand the sight of blood, perhaps only on the Bayou Tapestry where it's a bit more sanitised. That's why I'm a history teacher. Anyway, you're doing a fantastic job and keep it up. See you later. Bye.